Our sense organs, which collect information from the surroundings, are connected to the central nervous system, which consists of brain and spinal cord through afferent nerves. If something happens that requires taking action, for example, if football is flying towards you, then the central nervous system receives impulses from the sense organ and it generates response which is carried to muscle through efferent nerve, and here that response will make the leg muscles contract to kick the ball. Though different sense organs work in different ways, they all keep sending information about the changes in the surroundings that trigger responses from the central nervous system.
Hello guys, I'm Marivic Valdez from Prepared to Be. I'm the first reporter of our group. The nervous system is the major controlling, regulatory, and communicating system in the body. It is the center of all mental activity, including thought, learning, and memory. It enables the body to respond and adapt to changes that occur both inside and outside of the body.
My name is Christopher A. Bistro from Biped2B, and I will discuss the types of neurons. First, let's talk about neurons. Neurons are the cells that make up the brain and the nervous system. They are fundamental units that send and receive signals which allow us to move our muscles, feel the external world, think, form memories, and much more. Just from looking down a microscope, however, it becomes very clear that not all neurons are the same. Like in spinal cord, we can say that there are three types of neurons: the sensory, the motor, and the interneurons. First, let's talk about sensory neurons. Sensory neurons are the nerve cells that are activated by sensory input from the environment. For example, when you touch a hot surface with your fingertips, the sensory neurons will be the ones firing and sending off signals to the rest of the nervous system about the information they have received. The inputs that activate sensory neurons can be physical or chemical, corresponding to all five of our senses. Thus, a physical input can be things like sound, touch, heat, or light. A chemical input comes from the taste or smell, which neurons then send to the brain. Most sensory neurons are pseudonipolar, which means they only have one axon, which is split into two branches. Next, let's talk about motor neurons. Motor neurons of the spinal cord are part of the central nervous system, or the CNS, and connect to the muscles, glands, and organs throughout the body. These neurons transmit impulses from the spinal cord to skeletal and smooth muscles such as those in your stomach, and so directly control all of our muscle movements. Motor neurons have the most common type of body plan. For a nerve cell, they are multipolar, each with one axon and several dendrites. And let's move forward for the last, the interneurons. As the name suggests, interneurons are the ones in between. They connect motor neurons and sensory neurons, as well as transferring signals between sensory and motor neurons. Interneurons can also communicate with each other, forming circuits of various complexity. They are multipolar, just like motor neurons. And that's all the types of neurons. Thank you.
Good day everyone. My name is Ceszarie Santos from BPED 2B, and now I am representing about the autonomic nervous system, synapses, and nerve fibers. Now let's proceed to nerve fibers. What is nerve fibers? Shan cells only found on peripheral nerves which can regenerate. Myelin sheath, a fatty layer of insulation of some nerve fibers. So, there are no Schwann and cells on nerve fiber in the central nervous system. Therefore, damage to those nerve fibers is not reversible. There are two types of nerve fibers, the afferent and efferent. So, an axon or nerve fiber is a long, slender projection of a nerve cell or neuron in vertebrates that typically conducted electrical impulses, known as an action potential away from the nerve cell. The function of an axon is to transmit information to different neural muscles and glands. So, yung fiber is a type of nerve which composed of many tissues. And nerve fiber, siya yung nagbibigay ng information sa iba't ibang neurons. So, parang siya yung nagbibigay ng utos or information para kumbaga si nerve fiber is yung nagpa-function para sa mga neurons. Tapos, there are two types of nerves, the afferent and efferent. Efferent neurons are motor neurons that carry neural impulses away from nervous system and toward muscle to cause movements, while afferent neurons are sensory neurons that carry nerves impulses from sensory stimuli toward central nervous system and brains. So, ang afferent neurons ay mga sensory neurons na nagdadala ng mga nerves impulses mula sa sensory stimuli patungo sa central system natin or yung utak natin. So, while ang afferent neurons, motor neurons na nagdadala ng impulses na nasa malayo papunta sa gitnang bahagi ng ating katawan na nagbibigay ng benepisyo upang mapagalaw o magbigay ng energy sa iba't ibang kalamanan natin. And now, let's proceed to synapses. Nerve impulses are transmitted via branches are called synapses. The synapses are connectors hooking the dendrites and axon from one neurons to another. The number of synapses influences transmission. That number can decrease with disease, lack of stimulation, drug uses, and etc. So, synapses or in the nervous system is a small gap at the end of neuron that allows signal from neuron to the next neuron. Synapses are found with nerve cells connect with other nerve cells. So, pare-parehas lang kasi yan. Ang neurons, lahat sa nerve. Yung synapses, siya yung nagko-connect para mag-flow or maipasa yung information sa iba't ibang neurons para ang benefits ng synapses. So, ang isang synapses ay isang maliit na puwang sa dulo ng isang neurons na naghahatid or nagpapahintulot ng senyas para pumasa mula sa neurons hanggang sa susunod pa. So, ang benefits ng synapses ay siya yung nagpapahintulot para maipasa yung iba't ibang cells patungo sa iba't ibang neurons. Ang synapses ay nagko-connect sa nerve cells at iba't iba pa. Now, let's proceed to autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is a part of peripheral nervous system. It controls involuntary bodily functions such as sweating glands, secretion, and blood pressure, and the hearts. It's divided into two, sympathetic and parasympathetic division. So, the autonomic system regulates a variety of body processes that can take place with conscious effort. The autonomic system is a part of peripheral nervous system that is responsible for regulating involuntary body function such as heartbeat, flow, breathing, and digestion. The autonomic nervous system is the part of nervous system that supplies the internal organs. So, yung autonomic is responsible niya ang pag-function ng body, like yung pag-flow ng dugo, at ganun pa man yung pag-heartbeat at pag-function ng nervous system. So, siya ang nagpapakilo sa lahat ng nerve cells sa ating body. Ang nerve impulses naman ay kasama sa nerve cells para maidaloy ng maayos ang function sa ating katawan. So, there are two types, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic, siya yung nag-a-active kapag kailangan masolusyonan o labanan para maayos yung nerves. While the parasympathetic division, siya naman yung nagpapakalma sa ating katawan para maiayos patungo sa magandang kalalagyan.
Okay, good day everyone. My name is Jonalyn Siwa from BPED 2B, and I'll discuss about central nervous system, which is the gray and white matters of central nervous system. Okay, the brain of the spinal cord of the central nervous system receive impulses, process the information, and respond with the appropriate action. So, alam naman natin ng pag-iisip natin o yung brain natin siyang nagko-control sa lahat ng ginagawa natin sa action, information, impulses, or etc. And heart, of course, siya lahat yung nagpapagalaw sa atin. Okay, kapag sinabi natin gray and white matters, gray matter of the brain and spinal cord consists of unsheltered nerve fibers in the cortex of surface layer. The white matter makes up the internal structure and consists of myelinated nerve fibers. So, ano nga ba yung difference ng dalawa na to? So, kapag sinabi natin white matter is the whitish. Of course, whitish. Siyempre, white matters, di ba? Okay, whitish nerve tissue of the central nervous system that is mainly composed of myelinated nerve fibers or axons. And how about, kapag sinabi naman natin gray matters, is grayish. Of course, grayish. Nerve tissue of the central nervous system mainly composed of nerve cells and bodies and dendrites. And the brain and spinal cord are enclosed by three membranes collected known as the durameter, arachnoid, and piameter. So, the outside membrane is the durameter, and the middle membrane is the arachnoid, and the inside membrane is the piameter. So, ito yung picture, kung nakikita nyo. Durameter, the outside, and the arachnoid is the middle, and the piameter is the inside of the brain. Okay, durameter. Kapag sinabi natin durameter, covering the brain, continuous with durameter of spinal cord, folded inward as four septa between part of the brain. The function of this septa is to restrict the rotary displacement of the brain. And how about kapag sinabi naman nating arachnoid matter? So, middle part of the meninges. So, web-like appearance, provide cushioning effect for the CNS, thin, transparent membrane, impermeable to fluids. And how about the piameter? So, piameter is a vascular membrane covered by mesothelial cells, closely invests the brain, covering the gyri, descending in the deepest sulci, and closely applied to the cortical surface. Okay. So, punta naman tayo sa peripheral. Okay, peripheral nervous system. Okay, dito pumapasok yung the vagus nerve, accessory nerve, hypoglossal nerve. So, how about kapag sinabi natin the vagus nerves? Okay, the vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve extending to and controlling the heart, lungs, stomach, and intestine. So, kumbaga, ito yung pinaka malaking role sa ating katawan. And accessory nerve permits movement of the head and shoulders. So, pumapasok naman siya sa head and shoulders. And the hypoglossal nerve controls the muscles of the tongue. So, yung vagus, kung mapapansin nyo, sakop niya buong katawan natin magbula sa ulo hanggang sa stomach natin, dala niya. Okay. So, dito makikita nyo ang structures ng brain. Okay, vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is used to regulate a variety of body functions, including the heartbeat, the muscles movement necessary to keep the breathing. This nerve also regulates the chemical levels in the digestive system so that the intestine can process food and keep track or what types of nutrients are being gained from the food that is taken in. Okay, kapag ito, hypoglossal nerve runs inferior to the tongue, innervates the tongue muscles. So, kung mapapansin nyo, kapag kumakain or ngumunguya tayo, naririnig natin yung pagnguya or yung lumalagotok sa tenga natin kasi nga, connected yung mouth and tongue, yung tongue and sa ears natin. So, yun pala yung hypoglossal nerves. Okay, how about kapag sinabi natin accessory nerve permits? So, permits movements of the head and shoulders. Okay, we have a picture. So, ayan, accessory nerve. So, kung mapapansin nyo, kapag gumagalaw tayo, ayan, connected yung shoulders natin. At kapag nagkakaroon tayo ng stiff neck, kaya pala, sumasakit yung ganito natin. And, tugon siya dito. No? So, yun pala yung accessory nerve connected to head and shoulders. Okay, that's my all reports. Thank you.
I'm Marco Paulo Bitique from BPED 2B and my topic is the cerebellum. Sa Latin word, ang tawag dito ay little brain. Makikita or ang kinalalagyan nito ay malapit sa ating brainstem. Ang cerebellum po ay responsable sa ating movements o kilos, motor skills tulad ng ating balanse sa katawan, posture at iba pa. Sa ating mental function naman ng cerebellum, sa atin ay responsable ito sa ating pag-iisip, pagsasalita, mood or emosyon, atensyon, takot at pleasure. Next is the diencephalon. Ito ay nasa bandang harap ng ating skull or ulo. Nasasakop din po nito ang center region ng ating utak. Ang diencephalon ay nasa pagitan ng ating telencephalon or what we call cerebrum. Ang pinakamalaking parte ng ating utak at midbrain ang nasa parteng harap ng ating brainstem.
Good day everyone, my name is Jenina Valino from BPED 2B. Now I discuss the parts of the brain. Brainstem. The brainstem consists of three structures. The gray matter of the midbrain controls visual reflexes and the sense of hearing. The white matter of the pons plays a role in the regulating visceral or internal organ control. The medulla oblongata connects the rest of the brain to the spinal cords. It regulates breathing, swallowing, counting, sneezing, vomiting, heartbeat, and the blood pressure. The autonomic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is the responsible for the flight or fight. Responses increase alertness, metabolic rate, respiration, blood pressure, and the heart rate, and sweating, and decrease in digestive and urinary function. The parasympathetic nervous system counteract the responses of the sympathetic system, restoring homeostasis. The spinal cord. The spinal cord has 31 segments, 8 cervical segments that correspond to the C1 to C8 vertebrae, 12 thoracic segments corresponding to the T1 to T12 vertebrae, 5 lumbar segments corresponding to L1 to L5 vertebrae, 5 sacral segments corresponding to S1 to S5 vertebrae, and the esophageal segments is 1. The 44 cm long spinal cords is shorter than the spinal column, so segments do not perfectly corresponding to the vertebrae.
Good day everyone, I'm Carlo and Velarde. So, didiscuss ko yung spinal cord. the spinal cord. At each segment of the spinal cord, left and right pairs of sensory and motor nerves branch out and connect to the peripheral nervous system. Impulses travel back and forth to the brain and back to the muscles. Dito makikita natin yung sa picture, makikita natin yung sensory to brain, motor from brain, sensory from body part, sensory motor reflex, and motor to body part. Yung spinal cord kasi, nagkikarry siya ng information to the brain. And it also carries signals from the brain. Yung spinal cord, meron din siyang motor reflex. So, kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng reflex responses through spinal cord. Next is the cerebrospinal fluid. A colorless fluid is produced in the ventricles of the brain. It surrounds the brain and spinal cord. It is called cerebrospinal fluid, and it cushions the brain and cord from shocks that could cause injury. It is maintained at a level around 1/2 or 2/3 cup. So, yung cerebrospinal fluid, ito yung nakakover sa spinal cord at sa brain natin. Ngayon, siya yung parang nagpoprotekta sa mga shocks na madadama natin na pwedeng mag-cause ng injury sa ating utak.
Hi, I'm Loie Villoria from BPED 2B, and I would like to discuss my assigned topic, which is the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system consists of the nerve and ganglia outside the brain and spinal cord, and main function of the PNS is to connect the CNS or the central nervous system to the limb and organs, essentially serving as the relay between brain and spinal cord and the rest of the body. And there are 12 pairs cranial nerve that attach to the brain. The first one, the factory nerve. Factory nerve is typically considered the first cranial nerve that contains sensory nerve fibers related to the sense of smelling. Is sensory in nature and part of the nasal cavity. And for the second, the optic nerve. The optic nerve is located in the back of the eye. It is also called the second cranial nerve. Optic nerve is the transfer visual information from the retina to the vision center of the brain via electrical impulse. And for the third, the oculomotor nerve. The oculomotor nerve is the third cranial nerve containing parasympathetic nerve fibers that regulate the iris and the lens of the eye. The iris is a thin annular structure in the eye, responsible for controlling the diameter and size of the pupil and the amount of light reaching the retina. The lens is transparent and can be replaced if necessary. Our lens deteriorates if we are resulting in the need for reading glasses. And for the fourth, the trochlear nerve. Is the fourth cranial nerve is purely a motor nerve and is the only cranial nerve to exit the brain dorsally, and cochlear nerve supply one's muscles. And for the fifth, the trigeminal nerve. It is the large and most complex of the 12 cranial nerve. Is a nerve responsible for sensation in the face and motor function such as biting and chewing. And the abducent nerve is the sixth cranial nerve that controls the movement of the lateral retina muscle. It is located in the pons. The facial nerve is the seventh cranial nerve. Is emerged from the pons of the brainstem. Control the muscles of facial expression. And the cochlear nerve is the primary responsible for transmitting the electrical impulse generated for hearing and localization of sound. The glossopharyngeal nerve, known as the ninth cranial nerve, provides somatic motor innervation to the stylopharyngeus muscle, visceral motor innervation to the parotid gland, and carries afferent sensory fibers from the posterior third of tongue, pharynx, and tympanic cavity.